sir.
Hello, Mr. Hughes. Is that you?
That is me.
It is the one and only Chris. Well, I wouldn't say the one and only, but it's the guy I'm looking for.
No, not considering that the co-creator of Facebook and I share the same name.
That's honestly what I thought as I was saying. I'm like, hold on a second. This isn't the one and only.
Popular one.
This is a Chris Hughes, the Chris Hughes, the one of many. For my friends overseas, he's not quite a John Smith, but we'll put him in the Patel category. How you doing this evening, man?
I'm excellent. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I gotta say, it was kind of confusing. I haven't done an interview at this time of day in a long time. Most of my interviews have been, well, the sun's been up still, and as a result, my low budget lighting works. But when I went to turn on the camera and do this, I was like, oh shoot. And
mood lighting.
If we could say that. I had to rearrange, and to be honest, there was an area where behind me, you'll see it when this goes up, there's a doorway which when the sun is somewhat there, it sucks. So the fact that we just had a delay for the last half hour, it works out very well, because that got dark.
Perfect.
And now this works.
Excellent. Well, we'll thank my rabbit for me having to go get him some shavings for his cage.
Oh,
what's delayed us?
I saw. Oh, his colitis.
No, I had to get shavings for his cage.
Okay, and then what did you say?
No, that's what delayed us.
Oh, that's what delayed us. I thought you said he has colitis. I'm like, what?
No. Do rabbits get colitis? I don't know.
I don't even know if they have. What do you need to have that?
I have no clue. I don't know. That's probably going to get too technical and turn off all your listeners. So
let's not even go down that route.
Yeah, let's not make everybody sad by talking about rabbit colitis.
I have to rectally infuse his food.
yeah, exactly. It's really sad.
What's his name? I saw him in a photo, and
Elvis Presley.
That's awesome. You know what Elvis's middle name was?
Aaron.
Damn right it was.
That's right.
And to my listeners, funny enough, before Chris and I spoke, like I say, there was a bit of a delay, and the way he worded it was, I have some errands to run. And I threw out, the show's called Running Errands, and he's like, no, I didn't know that. Are you serious? Yes. The show is very punny, I guess.
That's pretty good. I like it.
But before we go any further, I got to say, I'm wearing a hat. I got some new gear printed, and I've got to push it. So how do I do that? Okay, there into the camera. It's a play on words. It says don't share needles, but it's like don't share like turntable needles, right?
Yeah, you shouldn't do that.
No, it's not a good thing. It's not healthy. So yeah, if you want a hat, you want a shirt, please go to the page, buy a shirt, support the cause. With that, I'm going to ask you first personal question. Before we get into any industry, I want to learn a little bit about you.
Sure.
What's the best book you've ever read?
Off the top of my head, I'd have to say Tolstoy's Anna Karenina.
Wow.
And I know that that's sort of a hoity-toity answer, but I was about 15 or 16 years old, and one of my uncles was an avid reader, and so was I as a youth. And he gave me the book to read, and yeah, it is probably the best book ever written. It's a tragedy, but very, very, very well written.
Is it the writing that...
The lessons in it still apply today.
That's what I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you, is it the writing or is it the lessons that you learned by reading it?
The writing itself is brilliant. The way the story flows and the way that you can relate to the characters in the book. And just the life lessons, the astounding life lessons that are true and will be true 1,000 years from now. He was, I wouldn't call him a prophet, but he was definitely somebody that had a lot of foresight.
Yeah, and he's
understood the human condition very well.
Definitely. Yeah, and he's one of those people that when after reading him, I put him into a category of a Hemingway or even a Socrates, and I know they're not at all the same. It's just that I somewhat prophetize
Socrates
like he's
would be closer. I think I put Hemingway in his own category.
But they're just guys that I put into this godlike complex. Like I read them and I idolize them so much that I forget they were human.
Yeah.
Because they were just so amazing at what they did. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I guess the other book for me would. Sorry to.
No, go ahead.
The other one that I really, really, really like is Kurt Vonnegut's biography. It's called Palm Sunday. It's a really, really good book. Vonnegut's another one that I kind of loft up there into that category as well.
I have to say I'm not familiar with Vonnegut.
Oh, no? Oh,
No.
wow. I'd recommend Breakfast of Champions. It was made into a movie, but I wouldn't watch the movie first. Read the book, and then watch the film. It's got Bruce Willis and a few other people in it. It's quite funny.
Okay, is that
And then, yeah,
what kind of
sure.
literature are we talking here? Is it philosophy?
It's very dark, dry, punish humor. He was a humorist.
Okay.
So he's got that really dark, witty. He was born into a concentration camp, so his humor is very, very dark and stems from that sort of life could end at any time.
I assume he's
I
Jewish.
He watched a bunch of. I think when he was young, he experienced camp life, and yeah, Palm Sunday is all about that.
I was when you said that, like, I'm Jewish and I went to a Jewish camp growing up, but not the same one he did.
Not the same one he did. Not even close.
Northland and Auschwitz did not share the same kayaking lessons on.
No, not at all. No, exactly. Yeah, so he's one that I recommend to anyone that's into literature, really, and likes that sort of dark, wry humor and understands it. You could, if reading him, you're a bit sensitive, you might be offended. But he experienced these things, so you have to look at the context of what he's saying.
I think you gotta also not be so sensitive. We're in such a weird time right now.
I agree with that too. I agree with that as well.
It offended me. Well, shut up and read something else.
There's nowhere that says you have the right to not be offended. The right not to be offended. That's not anywhere in anyone's books, anywhere. It's never been even tried in human history to sort of have that law as well. I guess maybe during the feudal times when they would slap each other with white gloves and then shoot each other.
Well,
you offended me, pistols at dawn.
Yeah, and I think you could. There's been some really dark times where you have tyrannical kingdoms and stuff that would have shut people up for saying things. So we didn't always. Yeah. We don't have. We what we have in this country, I can't say is even shared around the world at this point. There's places where you can't say or do exactly what you want to say and do. We can.
No, I know.
But
I agree with that. I agree with that fully, and it's more so compounded with, and I'm not even going to state my views on these things, but with gender politics, with various groups and people coming up and wanting to agitate, it's, yes, some people deserve to have the same rights as everyone else, and they've been excluded, but there's also other currents going on in the world that those movements could explode those currents. And I'm just wanting people to sort of take a step back from their own egos and agendas and just look at situations more broadly instead of more personally. I think that's a huge issue right now.
Well, and you know what? I won't go deep into your politics, but on a personal, like, I think what you just described happens to people when making judgment of character, even because.
Yeah, I would say stop doing that.
It's true. Like I was talking about, for instance, you have friends in your life that may do something that if somebody who's not your friend does, you may automatically judge that person as a bad person. And it's like, right. Meanwhile, one of your boys does that, and it's like, that's just him being stupid. And it's like, yeah, but it's the same. So we're not so one-dimensional. We're not so two-dimensional. We're not so three-dimensional. There's so many dimensions to us. Right. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so to take one of those dimensions and run with it with a sword in your hand seems a little bit short-sighted to me.
Exactly right. That's exactly what I'm saying. Is that, and that's what we don't have to go deep into each other's politics, but to agree on that is that we found all common ground. Come on, people. There's more to a person than one opinion they may have.
And I'm also, I guess I was raised Judeo-Christian in that redemption is a huge thing for me. Human beings deserve to be redeemed. If they've done something wrong, you deserve the right. I think we all owe it to each other to give each other that chance to redeem ourselves.
I get that, but okay, let me ask you then, what do you think about the recent event that's happened? How do you think that a person like that, do you think they deserve redemption?
Well, there is the other caveat to that there are irredeemable acts. There just are. And there's certain things that if you do them, you should be punished for them. And redemption is something that maybe that's for the next phase of whatever this is for you. I would take murder and put it in that category, and a few other things that are just irredeemable. There's no reason for them, you know?
Well, here's the thing, and I don't want to. If you at any point you say, you know what, I want to talk about, by all means.
No. Yeah.
In my opinion, even when it comes to murder, there's context to be put into it, and I think it's incorrect to say that there's no reason. There's always a reason. It's just not good enough,
yeah,
right?
Reason is the wrong term.
Right, and I don't want to nitpick at what you just said, but
No,
you know what? It's just that you're not justified, and I think sometimes what happens is people give their reason as a justification, and it's like the extreme example I give people all the time is that's like me saying, listen, I wanted to have sex with that girl, but she wouldn't sleep with me, so I had to rape her. It's like, I just explained the situation, but it doesn't justify me from doing that action.
You're absolutely right. That's what I mean. I'm sorry, I used the wrong term. Justification is sometimes not there.
Well,
or is not even close to something that the rest of us can relate to as being morally correct.
Well, and is there redemption? Like, for instance, in a crime of passion, for instance, let's say a man walks in on his wife being raped and, goes ballistic and murders the perp. And, that's murder. He can't claim self-defense at that point. That is murder. He could go to jail. Right. But I believe there's redemption in that type of murder. You know what I mean?
There is, but he would still have to be, in my mind, and in my perfect utopia, if we were to create one to live in, I would say he would still have to be punished for the act of murdering somebody.
I agree.
Now, because he's done it under duress with somebody that he loves being harmed in an egregious way at the time, you give him concessions on the sentence. You don't put him in with the violent murderers that are doing it for fun. When he goes to jail, you put him in for a shorter amount of time. These are things that law and police decide.
Well, it's not, to be honest, not really, because now we're going into the mind of the criminal, and that's the one thing the courts will never do. They don't go into the mind of they do in the sense of first degree, second degree, and manslaughter, but once you get into the one, like you said, the guys that are doing it for fun versus the ones that doesn't really get played into the system. You just get crime and punishment, and hope for rehabilitation in the process. But I totally agree that there is room for redemption, and that on the minor cases, I went to the full extreme. I took us to the deep end there. But in these subtle social situations where maybe you have a disagreement with a peer, you don't need to ostracize that person. You can have
exactly. And I see that all the time, where somebody's like, hey, that person doesn't hold the same political view as me, or they would spend money in a different way than I would, therefore I can't hang out with them anymore. That's not, that is such an extreme point of view when looking at people. And we're pretty fallible. We make mistakes all the time. So you're basically saying that you're going to run through everyone in your sphere, because at some point they're going to upset you and do something that you're not going to want to hang out with them for.
There you go. Exactly. Okay. What was the first concert? Way off topic now. What was the first concert you ever attended?
That I can remember.
That you can remember. Okay, hold on. Even better. What was the first concert you attended that you don't remember?
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. There was obviously things that my parents took me to when I was a kid, and I'd have to call them up right now and ask them what's going on.
Sharon Lois and Bram when you were 3.
Right. So there's Raffi, Sharon Lois, and Bram, but the first one I attended as a youth would be Blind Melon.
No way. That's awesome. Yep. You saw them before they all died?
Yep, I saw Blind Melon the day Shannon Hoon pissed off the side of the stage at Kingswood Theatre at Wonderland. I was there.
I didn't know he did that.
Oh, he did that. And got charged for it.
No way.
There was Shannon Hoon urination incident Wonderland.
Google it, man. I'll check it out. He was, what was he, high on heroin or something?
Oh yeah, he must have been. It was Blind Melon, Faith No More, and Screaming Trees.
Screaming Trees? A guy at work was wearing a Screaming Trees shirt. No way. I was like, who the are they?
Yeah. Nice.
That's awesome, man. Do you actually vividly remember it?
Vividly, because a friend of mine sprained his ankle in the mosh pit, and we had to sort of nurse him for the rest of the day.
They had a mosh pit at Wonderland?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Didn't they have, like, seats? Isn't it like
it was the Kingswood Music Theater, yeah, there were the seats, but then there was the bowl up top. With
people were moshing up on the lawn?
No, they were moshing down in the seats. That's why my friend hurt himself.
Oh, okay.
Down in, like, the first 3 rows of seats. Yeah, it was not good.
Yeah, and those are, like, bolted into the ground seats, right?
Yep, and he ran in, and that was it.
Okay, with that.
It was a fun time, though. It was a lot of fun.
Well, I gotta say, I remember that concert hall was actually a lot of fun. You know who I saw there? I'm kind of sad to admit it, but I will. Hanson. And
Yeah, that was the kind of thing that happened up there.
that's it, right? And
Yeah,
we went to pick up girls, and it worked.
yeah,
But
yeah. My brother did the same thing for New Kids on the Block. They bought front row tickets and sat right in the front row.
well, that's actually I love Duke. I'll be a guilty fan, but I was young. You know, I was like 5 6 years old, and I went and saw them at Maple Leaf Gardens, and I remember being on my dad's shoulders, listening to them. But anyway, so let's dive in. Let's dive into some industry
Nice.
questions. What was your first rave experience?
My first rave experience was at the corner of Mavis and Dundas in Mississauga on my 19th birthday. We were coming back from a friend's house. We had just finished, obviously, drinking because I just turned 19. And I think it was Happy Days Rave Company. Yes, throwing like a tent party at the corner of Mavis and Dundas. We just walked by it, and I went, "What the hell is this?" We ended up inside later in the night. I think Dominic was playing.
Okay.
Yeah, it was really, really just a strange, quick in out. And then when I was talking to friends of mine about it, I was like, I went to this weird party. I didn't even know what was going on. For those who don't know, DJ Dominic plays 130, 135 BPM German hardcore. It was really fast. Yeah. After that, just talked to a couple of friends and then ended up at a jungle rave. That's where I kind of met Don Burns and Jason Spanu and a bunch of other people.
What year are we talking?
1994, late 94.
That's amazing. So you're talking. Are we talking like 23 Hop?
No. It was the first jungle rave I went to was called Vibe Tribe. It was down at Broadview and Queen Street, just across from the Opera House. There's like a side street. Everybody parks on it when they go to Opera House. Down that street, there used to be a bowling hall. Or like a 12-pin bowling alley.
12, 10 pin, 10
It
pin.
had been cleared out, and somebody rented it out and threw a huge party in it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it was like an illegal warehouse type thing.
Well, that's what when you first said Dominic and you were 19, I had no way to date what you were talking about. But as soon as you dropped Don Burns, it's like, okay, so we're going
Don
back.
Burns was like my first Don Burns meeting experience was hilarious. I mean, I'm 20 years old. I walk into this bowling alley. It's dark. There's like one laser light sort of over the dance floor. Crazy music I'd never heard before playing. Jungle. Was just like absorbing it all, kind of going, what the hell? And out on the dance floor is this white-haired man dancing around like harder than everybody. We were just kind of fixated on him for the whole night. Like, who is this man? He was probably about 45 at the time, maybe 50. Just older than everybody, but having the most fun and giving off the most fun energy. Took me a couple of parties to actually talk to him. I met him that night, but then you find out he's one of the coolest, most knowledgeable people you've ever met on this music.
Dr. Trance.
Rest his soul.
Yeah, God rest his soul. And he comes up in a lot of these discussions. I never had the pleasures of meeting or talking to him. I like hearing your intro story. Do you have a favorite Don Burns story from your times of knowing him?
Well, I didn't know him as well as some of my other friends did. I didn't socialize with him as much. I think because I was more of an introvert at the time. I was dealing with some family issues of my own, so I didn't really. My early rave experience, a lot of it was just sort of blending into the darkness. And Don actually saw that and gave me a bit of a warning at one after party one Sunday morning. Sat me down in a chair and was just kind of like, you'd seen me DJ once or twice, and he encouraged me in that. He said, you're pretty good at what you do. You should consider slowing it down a bit on the partying and maybe looking into getting some grant money to do this professionally. That was it. But I took it sort of as advice from almost a fatherly figure because I didn't really have one at the time. And yeah, it was a profound kind of moment.
Well, here you are talking about it, like 20 years later?
Yeah, and over the course of maybe 2 or 3 years after that, it would just ring around in my head. I know I can do the music. I don't have to do the partying so much. you can incorporate the two. You can find a balance.
Well, it's funny
because for a lot of people, they get out there on the dance floor and it's just partying kind of overwhelms them. They don't make it as far as they would want to with music.
No, I hear you.
I've had that experience. It's put me back a couple of times.
Well, the picture I actually put up of you is a shirt you're wearing that says, "Don't let me do shots or coke."
And that's probably a true warning. If I'm to be honest with everybody, like that's a true thing. At this stage in my life, don't.
Nobody offered Chris.
It's going to mess up all of this. It's not that I'm going to get to a point where I'm going to be hilarious. No, it's just going to slow me down from the label. It's going to slow down the work, and I don't want that.
Do you find people that you once hung around with when you were, let's say, more of a party person, have found you to be duller now that you don't use the substance?
Of course, and I'm not saying I don't. I still dabble. There's still occasions where I will. But the majority of my personality now is geared towards saying no to it. And yeah, there are those people it's unfortunate, but they can't find another context for you after that. They can't spend time with you outside of that mold.
Well, to hell with those people, and try and stay as sober as you can, my friend. What would you say is the biggest difference between, like, every DJ, here's the thing, I try and have this discussion with people, everyone's got a different opinion. What would you say is the difference between each DJ that spins the different genres of EDM music?
What's the difference? I'd have to say that some of the more commercialized EDM styles require more of a buoyant personality, where the set is more about the person jumping around than it is about the music being interesting. I don't know if that has to do with the DJ actually having to do more to the music with more minimal music than less minimal music, if you understand what I'm saying. The more commercialized EDM is full production. It's not scaled down minimal techno. So with full production music, you can just sort of turn it on, let it play, and it does its own thing. Therefore, the DJ that's playing that music has a lot of time to just dance around. I've played that music myself. I will play that music. It's fun to play. It's not my love. I actually do like a more minimal style because it allows me to play on more gear. I can play 4 turntables and make a broader mix. So I guess that would be the difference for me, is that the more commercial guys have more time to dance around, and the techno guys, they're more dour and less interesting to look at.
Well, yeah, and I think you hit on something when you said fuller sound, because even within drum and bass, like the one thing I always say about jungle drum and bass DJs is that they're quicker in their mixes and getting to the next tune, less with the mixer and playing with the sound. But the one thing that a friend of mine did recently is I went to put on a new set, and before the first mix even came in, my buddy went, "Who is this guy? He's awesome." And I was like, dude, that's a song. He's not even doing anything. But it's the full production that you're talking about. It's that sound.
That's on the listener. That's really the maturity of the listener. And that's why I kind of love music. It's a journey.
Chris, really sorry to cut you out. Sorry to cut you off on that one. I gotta say, I as an MC, unless I'm in touch with every song that's out there, my job while I'm doing my job is to look at the DJ, look at the crossfader, and when I see it over to the left or to the right, I know I'm listening to a song, and I'll talk. But now that the equipment is the way it is, and they'll leave the fader in the middle and start playing with all the levels because they're using CDJs and they're not even touching their crossfader, it's tough. It is, yeah. It's that much tougher,
True, especially when you have guys like Laurent Garnier, who when they mix, they actually have like 3 tracks in the mix at all times. So there's 3 out of 4 faders up at all times. There's a Laurent Garnier set where he does a 5-hour boiler room set, and I even have trouble figuring out which deck is actually playing, which is something that DJs like to do.
That is cool. That's a neat little, I guess if you're smart enough and you're into this, sound enough, you would really, it's like almost an encryption, right?
Yeah. Well, that's kind of how, as you say, like you hit on something with that. When we were coming up watching vinyl DJs, that's what we were doing. We were watching the crossfader and watching the levels to be able to tell which deck was playing, so we could look at the artwork and then run to the record store and see if we could find it, if we liked it. Because out of respect, you didn't go into the DJ booth and go, "Yo, man, what's this track?" No, you let the guy do his job. And then you went to play the record and tried to find all the records that he had on the Thursday. Sometimes you actually got a couple of them, but you also got a bunch of different ones that were good. That's how we used to do. That was crate digging. That was record shopping. Now you just walk into a club with a Shazam, bang, 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 bang. You have every track right to Beatport.
It doesn't really work with all of our white label, or I would say with drum and bass it doesn't work so well. Maybe with other.
No, because there's still a culture of white label, which is an entire culture in itself, really. It takes a whole bunch of people sort of agreeing not to put that stuff online and not to make it available, not to make the titles available. Like, you all have to agree on that.
Yeah, there is truth to that.
There's a tacit agreement between every artist and everyone in that community that's, no, this is just not done.
Well, it's also, I think it helps keep the drive for the music up. Like, if you're a producer and you don't want your sound to be stolen from you, the best way to keep it that way is to not put it on Beatport or Spotify, and to just keep it on the wax, right?
You got it.
But okay, that kind of leads in.
That is something that we are battling with M5.
Hold on, don't go there. I was going to ask. You can't mention that before I ask. Okay.
Sorry.
You're getting me. You're going ahead of me, Chris. Okay. Right. I noticed when looking into you that you had two companies. One was by the name of Prawn. The other was M5. So I got to ask, what are each of them, and why are there two different companies? What's the difference?
Okay, Prawn is something I used to be involved with. I'm no longer involved with it. It was a record label that I started with DJ Jerry May from Belgium back in 2014. It's still a record label. It's just, I guess, on hiatus. Jerry still owns the entire label. I just left it. And because he's recently had another child, it's kind of on hold. But it will be back. He and I are in talks to sort of revive it as a label. It'll be completely his. I'll just be a sort of advising on, tracks, selection, that kind of thing. And then M5 is a company I started in 2016 just because I like running record labels. Nahil Young is the one that set that one up for me.
Who's that? Sorry?
Nahil Young from Frequenza Records.
Okay.
Him and I developed a friendship over the course of the last couple of years. I mentioned to him that I had wanted to start another label after Prom, and he graciously walked me through the process of setting it up myself. So I owe a lot of M5's inception, including the artwork, which he designed, the original logo and the original banner for SoundCloud, for Facebook. He's done quite a few pieces of artwork for us over the last year. He's really been instrumental.
Well, and if I'm not mistaken, M5 is a play on your postal region.
Yeah, downtown Toronto. If you look at most of the downtown Toronto wards, they all have M5 postal prefix.
Hear that, 416? You got something else you can yell out, M5. Well, and you know what? Okay, so as a label, what is it that, excuse me, for people who may not know, what is it that you do to help support artists' sound as a label?
We push the artists that we believe in. I believe music integrity is important, so on that level, it's about what we like. And at this point, we, as myself and Costa Zakis, our booking agent and, CEO, he and I sit down whenever there's a track that's submitted to us, and we basically just decide, can we dance to this? Do we like it? It's not anything more complicated than that. And then once we do like it, we push that artist. We push them onto Beatport. We push them in chat rooms and groups on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. We try to get them noticed. We try to get other promoters to notice them. We book them at gigs that we're booking. It's about support. It's about getting that artist out there.
Awesome, and big ups for what you guys are doing. We need more people that are focused towards that, because a lot of artists need to be able to focus their time on making their art and not pushing their sound. Not to mention, some of you artists are awkward. You're socially awkward, so you don't do well at pushing your sound.
No, it's true. If you look at the label compared to other labels, a lot of the top guys on Beatport, the label is them. So each release for the last however many releases they have is them with another artist collaborating. I haven't done that with M5. I have one track out right now, and one in promo. So 2 out of the last, what are we at now? Almost 20 releases. or me, 2 remixes. I haven't actually put out an original track. So yeah, where I'm pushing other artists, I'm sort of pulling myself back from it, not to make it so much about me.
And when you say that, you mean you, Chris Hughes, the producer?
Yeah, me, the producer. It's more about the label and everyone involved.
I get what you're saying too, because a lot of people who get a business like this going, it's more to promote their own sound. They start a label because they want to. I get what you mean. To be honest, Chris,
I do want to do that, but I want to do that without actually, doing it in a brash way. If I will make sure that my stuff matches the quality of the stuff that I'm receiving from other people before I put it out.
Well, that's kind of you, and that's admirable of you.
I don't come at I don't come at this from the ego that I'm better than all these people that are submitting to me. No, I come at it from, I'm okay. I do well at this. This is what I do. But there are a lot of other people out there that are better than me, and hopefully some of them submit to this label. That will up the quality of it each and every time.
Well, yeah, and I was going to say, when I was looking you up, it wasn't easy to find you as an artist. I was able to find you as a label owner and a guy involved with the music scene. But I couldn't find much of your sound.
No. I quite honestly haven't produced a ton of stuff. I started producing way back, but I didn't start releasing music until 2010. I released my first track under an alias, Phil Super. I remixed Jason Spano and put it out on Nice and Smooth. That was my first release, and then picked up by 6 and 7 by Sam Jurgens in 2014. That was my first full release myself.
And where would people go if they want to hear you?
Oh, live or online?
No, let's say both. Like, I was talking more online. Like, if I wanted to listen to your stuff right now.
Well, if you go to my Facebook and you look right underneath, if you're on mobile or just on a desktop, you can see the links to SoundCloud, Mixcloud, and Resident Advisor, Instagram. You can go and check out all my socials. I've got quite a few mixes dating back the last 8-9 years online. So I would guess checking my Facebook page would probably be the best.
Okay. And do you have anything up on the M5 page?
Just the one remix by myself.
Which one is that? What's it titled?
Something Less by Xeroxy Groove, and it's the Chris Hughes Rub-a-Dub-Dub remix.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's awesome, man. Check that. Yeah.
That one actually got quite a bit of attention. I was surprised by that one.
It's
Ryan
good.
Wiley was all over Toronto for a little while, and I got to hear it at the Vertigo just before New Year's.
Nice. That's awesome, man. What would you say is what makes your sound different than other DJs spinning your genre?
I would say that I like to blend things a little bit more. Over time, I'll spin 2, 3, sometimes 4 decks, whereas a lot of people are just playing the tractor, 2 decks. I try to not use the digital setup where you're bringing a computer, laptop. I did it for a little while, but I just find it limiting. To give you an example, next Saturday there will be 2 Technique 1200s, 2 CDJs, and a Zone 92 mixer that we're playing on. That allows you a lot of freedom. You get to play vinyl, CDs, waves, MP3s. So the blending of the different mediums, I think, sets me apart.
That's awesome, man. It's a great answer, and I'd love to actually see that set. But let's not talk dates, only because this might not come out for a few weeks. So
quite all right.
That won't matter.
I will be quiet.
We're getting into the last couple questions here. I gotta ask, like, you've been around for what, 30 years almost? 25 years?
Long time.
You're an old man, but we won't peg your age. What would you say is the highlight of your time in the scene?
Oh, getting to talk to Richie Houghton last year at Movement. I've never met him, oddly. There's a lot of people that I know him personally that talk to him all the time. He is from Southern Ontario, so it wouldn't be a weird thing for me to know him, but I've never really met him. I got to speak to him at Movement last year, and I did get to open for him and his brother in 1998, which I still have the flyer for. And I reminded him of it. It was in Hamilton. And I was like, hey, very nice to meet you. I don't know if you remember this, but I actually got to open for you once in 98 in Hamilton. And he remembered the party. For him to actually remember this little hole-in-the-wall party that he played in 1998 in Hamilton is astounding to me, considering the amount of gigs he's played since.
Sure.
So just having somebody be real like that, those are highlights for me.
That's awesome, and I'm sure that feels really cool. I can't compare.
I went for 2 days. Like, I can't believe he remembered.
You know what would be funny is if he was sitting somewhere one day going, without having met you that second time, but just going, hey man, do you remember that show we did in Hamilton 20 years ago? Who's that guy that opened for us? You remember?
Yeah. I opened the back room for his brother Matthew that night, and then sat behind him while a good friend of mine closed out for him.
Oh, that's awesome. Night. That's awesome, dude. Those is one of the reasons why we do what we do, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
That and when Stacy Pullen last year, again, movement last year, when Nathan Barato and Patrick Topping were going on, we were standing next to the bar, and my girlfriend Santana happened to notice Stacy Pullen walking towards us, and she walked over and hi, introduced herself, got a picture with him, and then she turned to him and said, hey, we're from Toronto, we're here to see Nathan. And he looked at both of us and said, it's time to go support, and walked over to the stage with us. That was really cool. Seeing a guy like Stacy Pullen, like, supporting Toronto, supporting Nathan Barato, that was really nice.
Well, it's nice when you get to meet your heroes and they're not assholes. That's real important.
I think that's the cool thing about what we do is so many of them aren't assholes when you start talking to them.
You're right. I agree. Okay, last question. I've kind of changed this one up. I had been asking about our rave scene. We're going to change it just because I think we're on episode 35 now, and the question becomes redundant after 34 times hearing answers. So if you could put 5 items into a vault that would encapsulate Canada, what would those 5 items be?
The real Canada, or the Canada that we all want to believe exists?
Ah, that's interesting. I'm not going to hold you to one of the
question to that question.
I was going to say that could be 2 separate vaults, but let's say one vault, but I allow you for both those answers.
One vault, eh? Okay. That really Canada. Water has to go in there.
Okay.
What else? I would have to say, I'm going to be lame and say you have to put a pine tree in there, or a pine cone.
Well, the pine tree would have pine cones. So we'll just put a pine tree, and hopefully it has some cones on it.
Yep. We can't put people in there, can we?
You can. You can shove them in there.
We can?
Go ahead.
Wayne Gretzky.
Just him. Hey, Wayne, you're repping Canada.
Wayne, sorry, you're repping Canada.
Get in there.
Hockey has to be represented, right? So Wayne represents hockey as well.
That's a great idea. Yep, you sum it all up with him. I'd love explaining that to him as you're shoving him in the vault. Like, Wayne, it's just you're hockey. You're just get in there.
Yeah, sorry, Gordie Howe's already dead. Get in here. He was Mr. Hockey.
That's awesome.
What other 2 things would I put in there? Salmon.
Okay.
The country. I'm not representing the culture. The country.
I think you are somewhere.
Yeah, and I would have to put probably like one of those giant quartz boulders that you find up in Muskoka.
Oh.
So yeah, that to me would represent the country.
Like our Canadian shield?
Yeah, a good slab of that.
Gotcha. Yeah, and it is beautiful when you go up there, isn't it?
It is. Oh, totally. That's how you know you're up there, is when you start seeing those rocks appear.
It's like Bancroft or Huntsville area. That's when you start to see it.
Yeah.
And Muskoka region, like you said. Muskoka. And you know what? I'll tell you a little secret, because my boss doesn't listen to this show. I always plan my road trips to that area because I'm a sales guy that I'm on the road. And whenever I do Huntsville, Bracebridge, it's always September, October, because that's when the leaves change, right? Mm-hmm. So I make sure I'm up there to catch all that beauty. It's amazing up there, man.
Yeah. That's how I see Canada. I see Canada as the vast sort of country that it is. I don't look at it as a culture or as its problems or the sum of any type of thing. It's bigger than that. We have to start treating it that way too.
Well, you didn't put any maple syrup or bacon.
No, because those things are kind of trite. That's part of the culture of certain areas of Canada. It's not true to an individual. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know what you mean.
Yeah, like I personally, and this is gonna make me sound not Canadian, but I personally don't like maple syrup. I find it to be too sweet.
No, that's fine, man. I don't eat bacon. I'm a vegan. But
There you go.
I'm
So things like that are culture related and almost like regionally related. And yeah, sure, they might represent a certain part of Canada, but they don't represent the country as a whole.
well, and I don't think any. Here's the thing: if there's really people who think that we're all like, who were they, Doug and Bob, in front of the Hoosiers?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, hey, how you doing here? You know who's more like that, in my opinion? There's a customer I deal with in. She's in northern Minneapolis, like near Fargo, basically. And
Yeah.
she talks like this, eh? Like, oh, how you doing there? It's like,
Yep, you definitely do find it in the upper Midwest of the U.S. and over in the East Coast of Canada. Yeah, for sure. Again, regional.
East Coast is different, I find. Like the East Coasters, they're not just. It's a slang almost. It's not just their accent. They speak differently. Like they speak with a bit of a slang, man.
True. It's a completely different dialect of English on some levels.
Exactly that. But anyways, okay, Chris, here, I'm going to sign off to my listeners. Stay on the phone with me, though, okay? Stay on the phone here.
Sounds good.
All right. Guys, that was him. That was Chris Hughes. I hope you enjoyed talking or listening to us talk as much as I enjoyed having the conversation. As always, please check him out on Facebook. Check out M5 Records. Hopefully, Prawn comes back to life and we get to hear something from them. But as always, thanks for tuning in. Till next time, peace out.